Welcome everyone to another Stop BS Now English Classroom. Tonight we are discussing what's her name, the author's name, her book. Goodness, I've been too busy. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Wonderful book. I've used it often with my elementary school students, grade 7s and 8s typically. I'm not an expert on it by no means. Fortunately, we have expert Sophia and Kevin Chen. We've chosen this book because we think it's very relevant to the current situation, global situation, the corona drama in which we are living. With that, I will hand over the lead to Sophia. Sophia, please feel free to start our discussion on any of the topics you're comfortable with.
So I'm going to talk about the benefits of going outside and getting fresh air.
Okay, a little louder again.
So I'm going to talk about the benefits of going outside, getting fresh air, and vitamin D.
Right. How is it related to the story?
So in the beginning, Mary basically stays her whole entire life inside her house. She doesn't really go outside. And the same thing goes for her cousin Colin. And I believe she might even be like a bit orange because of the lack of vitamin D.
Oh boy. Is vitamin D mentioned in the story?
I don't think vitamin D is mentioned, but I do believe it mentions that she doesn't really go outside often. I don't think she's not orange, she's yellow.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. I think you were confusing her with Donald Trump.
Yes, I was.
So, can you explain the connection? By the way, was Mary sick at the start of the novel?
She wasn't sick, but she looked sick.
Yeah, and she was certainly not pleasant to be with.
Yes.
Yeah. Kevin, do you want to jump in?
I think at the beginning you were saying that like her hair and her face were both yellow, and she was always like ill in one way or another. So I think Sophia really has a point when she says that after she goes outside, she gets better a lot, and the going outside really has something to do with that.
Indeed. I think, we are animals to some extent, perhaps entirely. Our ancestors spent most of their time outdoors. Perhaps they were healthier. But how is this subject related to our current situation? Sophia?
So basically right now we're being told to stay inside because it's going to keep us safe.
Safe and healthy.
Safe and healthy, yes. But being outside also does have its benefits that will probably most likely also improve the situation.
Right. One of the benefits being exposure to sunshine, and vitamin D is an excellent weapon in our immune system, helps fight off a number of things. I'm, again, not an expert. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that also to add on to that, the fresh air that you're getting outside might help. And also like if you're outside and you're like walking around, you would be getting exercise as well. So there are also many other factors.
Right, at home we tend to sit down. True. Fresh air, exercise, getting oxygen through our system. Oxygen tends to destroy pathogens, viruses included, when they're in our system, and vitamin D. Well, let's move on to, well, we've just talked about Mary in England. Why did she, sorry, Mary in India. Why does she have to leave India? Sophia?
Her parents died because of a because of the cholera outbreak.
Right. What is cholera? Do you know much about that, Kevin?
No, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty contagious and it can spread really quickly based on the novel because one person started with it and then suddenly everybody but Mary has been killed by
Cholera.
cholera.
Yeah. I think we recently had an outbreak of cholera in Haiti. It was caused by contaminated water, unclean water, stagnant water. Our current situation is a little different. We can't just be better stewards of our water. We're living among rumors such as regarding biolabs beyond our control, and if those rumors are not true, we know that viruses just seem to appear mysteriously every flu season, every year now, and sometimes flus strike even during the summer. No doubt because people are not so healthy and spending too much time indoors. I was rather surprised to read recently that flus used to be rare, not annual, but more like once every, I'm not sure, every decade. Something has happened to our environment and to our bodies to make us less healthy. So anyway, Mary loses her parents and moves to England, I believe. Sophia, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, she moved to England and
Yeah, a little louder.
she arrives at her uncle's place.
Right. And does she fall in love with this place?
No.
Why not?
I'm pretty sure she wants to go home.
Right. Even though home was not a pleasant place?
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. That strange yearning for a home which wasn't even good. But I think Mary slowly changes her mind. Kevin, what do you?
So yeah, I think that at the beginning when she first arrived at England, she like really didn't like it. But I think it also kind of has to do with her personality itself. She just doesn't tend to like things very much. And then she goes to the garden, and the garden changes her personality, which allows her to like it later on.
Yes, correct. Something about that garden. About that garden. What was it that appealed to her? Sophia?
I believe it was either the roses or a chair.
A chair and roses? Right. Was she active outdoors, or did she sit on that chair all the time? You can jump in whenever you want. You don't have to wait for me. I seem to recall she was skipping rope. Sound familiar to anyone? Are you guys still there or just ignoring?
Yeah.
Okay. This is meant to be a group discussion. I've already done a solo podcast myself this morning. So, was she active?
I think she was active because I think she was tending to the plants there. She was trying to keep them alive and doing lots of gardening. And I remember that someone, I don't remember who, but I remember that someone even brought her gardening tools to use. So I feel like through gardening, she was getting a lot of exercise.
Right. What do you think, Sophia? Was it the gardening that made her healthier?
Yeah, I think it's not only physically gardening, but it's the process of also planting plants and feeling accomplished.
Right. It's very fulfilling work to help things grow, especially things that later will help you grow and be healthy. It's such light physical work, and yes, just generally rewarding being outdoors. I've recently read that being outdoors, especially barefoot, can be very healthy as it helps I believe our natural electrical fields connect with the planet, with the cosmos or the atmosphere. You know, we live on an electric planet. There's electricity everywhere. And we are electric beings. So it's good to connect with the planet outdoors, not locked up in a house. Now, I believe there's someone else locked up in that house, another virtually quarantined character.
Maybe it was Colin, the son of Master Craven.
Right, Colin Craven. Does anyone know what Craven means?
Um,
Usually authors put some thought into the names they put on their characters. I believe Craven means coward. Why is that word suitable for Master Craven and Colin Craven? Sophia?
I believe after Mrs. Craven died, it changed Archibald Craven drastically.
Yeah, did he become a coward?
In a way, yes, like he couldn't really face life anymore.
Right, he couldn't face the outdoors, seemed to lock himself up. Do you remember what was the cause of Mrs. Craven's death? I think there's a small detail in the book that mentions a tree fell down and killed her. Those dangerous trees. Let's introduce, at this point, I want to make a connection to that mysterious character, the bird whisperer, I think was your name for him. Sophia, who was that?
Dickon.
Dickens. And what does he know about trees and bushes? What does he teach young Mary?
To appreciate nature.
Yes, but I'm talking about actual skills. What skill did he teach her? Does anyone remember, Kevin? You can say no.
Oh, I do not remember now.
Okay.
Gardening?
Pardon?
Was it gardening?
Yes, but something even more specific. I think it was pruning or trimming dead branches off of shrubs and trees. Does that sound familiar? Perhaps not.
Mm.
He was pruning back, perhaps not only dead branches, but pruning can also mean shaping a tree or ensuring that it doesn't grow too tall. If it's an apple tree, you want your fruit to be accessible easily. I thought that connected with the death of Mrs. Craven. Healthy living trees don't just fall over and kill people. If you have a dead tree standing long enough, it will fall over. So one should be careful with such trees. It was quite a unnecessary tragedy, I think, and unnecessary for Master Craven to react as he did. Yes, of course, he could grieve, but why stop going outdoors? It's almost as if he was afraid of being struck by a tree. Okay, any other topics you'd like to discuss? It's all open. Kevin or Sophia?
Um,
Well, how is our discussion different from a discussion you might have in a classroom about this book or another book?
we're definitely going into like deeper themes rather than surface.
Yeah, surface. Sometimes you just have to sketch out the plot from introduction to rising action to cataclysm, I mean climax. And what's that last part called? Declining or action and resolution, or I'm sure there's another term for it. It rather makes the novel useless to you, not very relevant. Now, Kevin, why is this novel especially relevant for us today?
Because it actually relates to real life today. Because in this novel, it shows what can happen to people after they are staying in their homes for too long, sitting by. For
Right.
example, you especially see it in Mary, and it's basically sending the message to us that we need to spend lots of time outdoors to maintain our health.
Right. Sophia, do you want to add to that?
No.
Okay. Now, quarantining has been on, began about a month ago here, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And one of its purposes appears to be to keep us from going outside, but I think its real purpose is to prevent us from socializing. At least that would be its stated purpose, because apparently we are too weak to deal with a little flu virus. My apologies to anyone who thinks this is more serious than that. Now, Mary didn't socialize much either when she was in India. She was a spoiled child, child of a wealthy family. She never saw her parents. There was no love in her life, nor friendship.
Just like Colin.
Precisely.
They're
So,
both spoiled and not seeing anyone.
right. Now, Mary develops quite a healthy relationship. First with whom? who is her first friend in England?
Dickon?
I think he might be second.
Martha.
Martha? That sounds right. Can you describe Martha briefly?
I believe she yeah, she's kind-hearted and she's pretty honest, and she's the person that she and Dickon basically transforms Mary for the better.
Right. She's quite unlike the maids that were hired to take care of Mary in India. Those maids treated Mary like a foreigner, like a chore, I suppose, or a duty. Yeah, Martha is quite different, more open, friendlier, but she doesn't tolerate nonsense either. Her second friend, I believe, Kevin, you mentioned the name?
Yeah, Dickon.
Dickon, yeah. Can you describe briefly their friendship?
Well, I don't know how they met, but I remember that Dickon was one of the people who basically like transformed her personality through the garden, along with Martha and maybe the gardener person.
Yes, the interesting adult there in the background, the gardener.
Ben Weatherstaff.
Thank you. Yeah. In some sense, a very unpleasant person, I thought. No?
Well, he's rude to Colin, but I feel like the fact that he was like tending to the secret garden makes it really changes viewers' impressions of him, because he seems to care about the flowers that live there a lot.
Right. Mary has one more friendship. The last one would be with it's a very mellow
Colin.
friendship. Go ahead, Sophia.
Colin.
Right. Could you briefly describe their friendship?
I believe they could relate to each other on some level, and I think she found him while she was tending to the garden.
Found him?
Yeah, like he was wailing or crying or...
Yeah, I forget. What persuaded him to go outside? I don't remember either. Maybe it was just his curiosity about Mary and what Mary was doing on his property. Perhaps just curiosity. Now, do you think all this socializing, all these friendships contributed to Mary's, what's the word, transformation into a healthy, happy young woman?
I feel like that would allow her to become less selfish, because through interacting and sharing feelings with other people, she learns to think about others and not just herself.
Right, and she may have enjoyed this very natural and healthy activity of socializing with people.
Yeah, and it might make her better at socializing, because before she didn't tend to be a really big contributor to conversations. Like, for example, the conversation with the name was Miss Medlock, I believe, on when Miss Medlock was bringing her to England.
Right. Yeah, I think Mary lived in a world where she had been raised to think she could just give orders to people, the maids.
Yeah, and maybe because that was like the only kind of social interaction she had, so she just learned to be really good at that kind of social interaction.
Right, yeah, if we can call it social interaction, but I understand. Now, our governments are a bit like, geez, who can we compare it to? I guess Mary's parents back in India, keeping her.
Maybe Mary's parents and Master Craven, both not letting their children go outside and just keeping them in their houses.
Right, now we're prevented from socializing, except as we're presently doing on the internet, which is better than nothing, but I would certainly prefer to do this around a table. But this is convenient. Nevertheless, many people are not doing this and socializing a lot less. And this can't be healthy for Canadians and people around the world, depriving themselves of healthy socializing time, healthy sunshine, healthy physical activity.
It might also change their personalities. Like they might become more like Mary after just being inside and not talking to others.
They might become more like Mary if they're, yes, if we, yeah, we're all becoming more like Mary, I guess. That's, I think, inevitable. Or more like Colin Craven. What do you think, Sophia?
I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
I also feel like we're gonna lack the ability to socialize and kind of like in a way forget how to socialize.
You know, people have already started doing that because they've spent so much time on their phones and their computers that face-to-face, eye-to-eye conversation skills are already slipping and deteriorating. So, yeah, I remember my cousins, they were creeped out because their mothers, or let's call him their stepfather, has a habit of looking into people's eyes. I haven't found anything unusual about this. I haven't even noticed it. But to them, they noticed and they thought it was, to put it mildly, awkward. In fact, it's probably a healthy habit. And they've just been raised on their devices for such a long time that this is no longer natural to them. Have you noticed anything like this? In your generation?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, could just briefly elaborate?
Often people don't really know how to interact with each other, and a lot of kids are, I don't know what you call it, but like I guess I'm gonna call it like going solo. Like they're more, they call it being introverted, but I feel like it's sometimes they just lack the ability to connect and open up because they spent a large portion of their life on the internet.
Right.
And the internet doesn't really provide any actual interaction or the ability to interact face to face and get used to that.
Correct. Yeah. Well, we're losing so many skills. We've lost our gardening skills a long time ago. I think Most of our ancestors were involved in farming or hunting and gathering, and they would have recognized hundreds of plants and probably been skilled with plants. Our schools don't really teach us manual skills. Your body is not much use in a school unless perhaps you're in a shop class, in which case you're building machines that will do your body's work for you. In some cases anyway, if you're building automobiles, for example, or perhaps a robotics class, your purpose is to replace yourself or others with robots. So that we can do what? Sit around? That appears to be the plan. Perhaps we can finish by discussing what I consider a little bit perhaps ironic. I'm talking about the geographic settings of the story. It starts in India, a place with wonderful climate, amazing soil. It's a mini Africa, and she moves to England, a place famously cloudy, wet, and yet somehow the book asks us to believe that this is the place where she discovered nature and gardening. What do you think? Does that seem a little ironic to you too?
Yeah, it seems ironic to me because nature is better in India usually.
Yeah, I haven't been there, but I do love the tropics, and I'm sure I would love India. At least the weather and the nature there. Now, why do you think the author, what's the word, wrote her novel this way? Why have the transformation happen in England instead of in India? If you need a clue, I can give you one.
Like, in my opinion,
Yes.
I feel like, you know how in the beginning it mentioned how Mary had like an ayah, like it was her ayah treated her ayah was being treated as a servant, and like her ayah basically heeded to all her her needs, and she didn't like step a foot down and say like I've had enough of your demands. Well, more in more so in England, it was like Martha, for example. You know, it was more honesty and it was more like real life conversation. So I guess that's how Mary changed.
Right. That also seems to me a little ironic. I'm not familiar with Indian servants of the ruling British elites, but generally, I think people in third world countries are more open and honest than those in more developed countries. Even within developed countries, for example, in Canada, if you were to go to the rural, poor areas, you'll find those people more open and honest. So again, it doesn't quite make sense. Why did so Kevin, do you have any thoughts on this, or shall I throw out my clue?
You can throw your clue.
Okay. Let's remember that the author, her name slips my mind again, Hodgson, she was writing for largely English people. Could that have influenced her novel?
Yes, because her audience, like people usually wouldn't want to buy something if they feel like it insults them.
Correct. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I feel like maybe the target audience for her might have impacted how she wrote the novel, because she wants to show her target audience in a good in a good way so that they want to buy the novel.
Right, and I don't want to stereotype, but there was some racism about in England at that time. Let's not speak about this time. And they did consider India their colony, somewhat like one giant servant for England. So perhaps the book would not have been so popular if it told us that Mary was abused and sick in England or neglected in England, and then came to life and was transformed in India, where the people were so much friendlier. Probably not going to be a hit in England. Okay, I think that wraps up our discussion, unless you have some final notes or questions. No? Well, in that case, I'd like to thank you, Sophia and Kevin, for another wonderful podcast and this wonderful book. I hope others get the chance to read it, enjoy it. There's wonderful descriptions there. It's a uplifting book, certainly not a dystopia. And it's a practical book too, unlike so many of our novels. So thank you again. Stay healthy. Do what you can to remain healthy. If you can't be outside, getting natural vitamin D through sunshine on your skin, please take some liquid vitamin D and exercise indoors if you have to. Thank you very much, and we'll meet again. Good night.